you've got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today we have another super episode for you guys. We have the super talented multicultural officer at the Oklahoma Historical Society, the one and only Saidy Herrera. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the invite. I am so glad to be here. And yes, as you said it, I am the multicultural officer. That means I talk with a lot of cultures here in Oklahoma. And that's a lot of numbers that we can go over.
Yeah, so I know you talk to a lot of people, but maybe for the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Historical Society is the state agency that collects, preserves, and shares the history and the culture of Oklahoma and its people.
Okay.
And so my duty, my pleasure, my honor is to work with the historically underrepresented communities here in the state.
Okay, that sounds like a super rewarding job. I definitely want to dive into that. But first, I want to rewind it back. So it sounds like you're Guatemalan, born and raised. Is that correct?
That is correct. I was born with a fusion of Mayan, Mexican, Spaniard, and Afro-Caribbean cultures while I was growing up in Guatemala City.
Wow, that's incredible. And I read trilingual.
Yes, sir.
Right? How did that work out? Tell me about that.
My dad moved to the U.S. when I was 3. And one thing that he did say is that, one, I had to learn how to speak English. Mm-hmm. And then on the way, they said, well, French, the French Alliance, it's available as well. Why don't you go ahead and learn French? Because those are going to be the top 3 languages that are spoken in the world. Yeah. Besides Mandarin, of course, but those you're going to be able to communicate pretty much around the world anywhere you go. Yeah. And so I was 14 when I was exposed to having a mix of the languages, because of course in Guatemala, there are 25 languages, Spanish being one of them. Okay. And so you're pretty much exposed to hearing different languages when you go to the store, when you go to the market. Yeah. 60% of the communities, it's of indigenous background, and Mayan being the strongest. And so you kind of grow up exposed to having multiple languages around you.
What about the French? Like, how did you pick up speaking French all of a sudden?
Well, I had to go to the IGA, which is the Instituto Guatemalteco Americano, which is, and we were given the choice of learning British English or American English.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, of course, I was going to come to the U.S., or the plan was for me to move here. So I went to the Guatemalan American Institute and then the French Alliance. And so it was really interesting to go to the French school, because even the teacher around the class had a sign that said that it was forbidden to speak English in her French class. Okay. And it's because quite a few of us were doing the same program, the trilingual program. Mm-hmm. And so it was, we had to be intentional about not mixing all 3. And so it's telling your brain not to mix 2. Or
that's a challenge.
It is.
I know French and Spanish, they're both romantic languages, so there's probably some similarities, but still, like it's a lot to pick up, right?
The grammar is very similar. The pronunciation, of course, changes. Then the vocabulary. And so someone said, once you learn one language, when you're speaking a foreign language or a different language, it's just a different sound. Okay. Because apple will continue to stay as an apple. The biggest difference is the sound that you give that fruit. Okay. And it's just learning the new sound.
Wow, that's incredible. That's super cool. When I saw that trilingual, I was like, I definitely have to ask her about that. So that's awesome. I'm super proud of your parents that they were like, okay, let's forward think and let's prepare for the future, right? That's really cool.
Yes. If there's anything I say now, it's thank you, Mom. Mm-hmm. You were right. Yeah. It was hard, but you were right.
Yeah.
yes.
When I was doing my research, the other thing I saw in your background is I saw some finance, I saw some education, and of course some cultural, right? So tell me a little bit about your journey, your careers that you've had along the way.
Well, I am a lifelong learner. I love learning. And so I had the opportunity of being multilingual. It also helps you think worldwide.
Yeah.
Where can I go? What can I do with this? And so one of my first careers was as a bilingual secretary.
Okay.
Then moved to the U.S. and they had me do high school all over again.
Oh, okay.
And because some credits didn't transfer.
Yeah.
And so I learned that if you did high school, you could also do a VOTEC or technical career. And one of the careers available was international tourism and hospitality.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
jumped into
right out
the
my alley,
opportunity.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool.
And so I did that as one of the first. And then moved to Oklahoma. And one of my first jobs was in the credit card department for a financial institution.
Okay.
So being there, I realized the needs of the Hispanic community, specifically the Hispanic community, because I had already lived in New York and California. Then moving to Oklahoma, it was a complete different environment.
Yeah.
And so I had the advantage of having another language or being able to communicate in English enough where I was translating for people at parent-teacher conferences.
Okay.
Then word of mouth works, and people will refer me to their friend and ask me to just translate at the doctor's office.
So you're like volunteered outside of work all of a sudden.
Pretty much. And so working at the financial institution, I realized a lot of the needs of the community. And so I was planning on going back to school anyway. But in the meantime, I was part of the founding team for a church.
Okay.
And so I went and took the School of Ministry and did my theology.
Oh, wow.
School of Ministry. I completed that as
So
the
I'm
ordained
thinking
level.
you like education, it sounds like, right? You enjoy?
I do. And then right after that, I decided to go back to OU
Okay.
and did my degree in business, focus on supply chain with an extension in Lean Six Sigma with engineering.
Very cool.
Then minor in nonprofit management with some other leadership programs. And then after that, I decided to do the certification in journalism with NYU. And I mean, some other programs on the way.
That's incredible. So I'm trying to piece the puzzle pieces together to see like where you wanted to head your career, but it's super diverse.
Correct.
So if I were to ask you what was the dream job back then, what would you have said?
Honestly, I wanted to be an interpreter for the United Nations.
Okay.
That was one of my childhood dreams. And but having this holistic education, because in the process of in between jobs, I was invited to be one of the part of the pioneer team for a bilingual program for a charter school.
Okay.
And that's when I went to get my certification as a teacher.
Wow.
and so I was a certified teacher during COVID.
Okay.
And it was a bilingual program. And so we started off from scratch.
Yeah.
Ground zero. And then COVID came. So we're helping our parents, Hispanic parents, learn how to use technology because that is challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
For anyone. And then some of them had never touched a laptop.
Yeah. And then during those times, everything was virtual, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate to be able to help my own community and help the parents feel at ease and still get the kids educated. And these barriers that we have imposed ourselves into the inability in a way to not speak a foreign language. In a way, the parents are holding their kids at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I was on the other side, letting them know that it was possible. And so we taught the kids how to speak Spanish as well. And the parents were teaching them how to communicate in English.
Okay.
And so I've helped in some programs on getting people get their GED in Espanol and teaching English as a second language to some adults.
And sprinkling some technology along the way too.
Yes. And so it's now the job that I'm doing. When the position opened up, it was a very competitive position, and there were quite a few applicants from around the nation.
Yeah.
And I was selected for the job precisely because of all the different areas.
You're just like super diverse, I bet. Yeah, that's incredible.
And it was, and so although that was not in my radar when I was thinking about applying for a job like this,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I like history. I like languages. I like business.
Yeah.
My thinking is in the bigger picture, which is supply chain. I was already awarded a Fulbright scholarship to do accounting.
Okay.
And I sat down doing one of my accounting classes, and I thought, this is not me.
Yeah, you didn't enjoy
I get it, but that's not me.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a big picture because my brain works like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I'm doing. I am working with so many different facets of Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's perfect. Tell me a little bit about the mission there at the Historical Society. For those that aren't familiar, tell me what they do.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Historical Society, it's for the state. So it is funded by the state.
Okay.
Every time you hear in the legislature, they're talking about budget, us included. And the in Oklahoma, there are more than 500 museums. It's a thing here in Oklahoma.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yep. And so we oversee more than 20 museums across the state,
Okay.
focused mainly on the history of Oklahoma. And those are sites and museums. So the one I office at is the Oklahoma History Center Museum.
Okay.
And at the Oklahoma History Center, you have the research department. And that's where they have all the master copies from the newspapers from 1893
Wow.
till today.
Okay.
So we exist even before statehood. The main responsibility of the agency is to collect the history, preserve it. We have the accreditation by the National Archives, and we have master documents from when the indigenous communities were forcibly removed from their towns to Oklahoma. And so we have the originals from the letters that were sent in between the government and the tribal nations. We have them in our storage. That's preserving it. So they have to follow certain rules for a museum. And then we share it. We have different, at the museums, we have some that are specifically focused, let's say, the Will Rogers Museum in Claremore, or the Tom Mix Museum,
Okay.
the OK Pop in Tulsa, that it's raising funds in order to have some funding mechanism approved by the legislature this last session. And so the sides, the forts, then Honey Springs Battlefield. So we have so much about the history of Oklahoma, and it, to me, was a full circle moment because when we moved to Oklahoma, my oldest daughter was in 5th grade, and she was, before moving to Oklahoma, we were in California, and she was in the Gifted and Talented program. When we moved to Oklahoma, she was not accepted into the program because she didn't know enough history about Oklahoma. And so at that time, I said, well, let's get and learn about the history of Oklahoma. Let's learn about it.
Yeah.
And later down the road, now I'm telling about the history of Oklahoma, not just learning about it, but sharing about it. So that's the mission of the agency, to collect, preserve, and share. And we do it in many different ways. And so one of my responsibilities is to create programs and events in activities where I am telling the story of the historically underrepresented communities, including women.
Maybe that diverse background, does that influence the way that you approach in developing these programs?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. I am able to see things from different angles, different perspectives. And one thing that I've learned is to be able to listen to people.
Okay.
One of my activities is to interview people from diverse backgrounds, getting to learn about them. It's very meaningful. We have so much in common as human beings.
Yeah.
But when we present it from how different we are, then we just creating division. But when we find those commonalities, we realize that we're just as similar as a human being can be. It's just the different accents, the different backgrounds. But at the end of the day, you talk about what was your favorite childhood memory. And most of us will just remember having our siblings or our friends playing around. We don't think of the differences. We just think of the laughter and the humanity in it.
Yeah, that's an important point. And I think that diversity makes us stronger, right? So one of the questions I have for you when you approached the Historical Society, what was your first thought?
In 2019, I was invited to volunteer in one of the exhibits they had about the Mayan textiles and Mayan artist paintings. We had an artist that brought in some paintings from San Juan La Laguna, Atitlan, Guatemala.
Okay.
And so I was invited just to kind of be have that conversation and just to communicating between some personnel, because I had already been working with another museum in Norman, and we developed an exhibit that exhibit took almost 40 years to be available to the public. And so having that as the experience, I was also invited for this other exhibit. And then I was invited for an interview because they were trying to identify who were the Latinos that were leaders in the community.
Okay.
And so I was invited to be part of the Latino history in Oklahoma. And so I became part of the state treasury history from the Latino community. And so they asked me if I knew some other Latinos.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I knew some.
Yeah.
And so when they said, well, we're just wanting to expand the inclusiveness of other communities, I was like, man, this is we're just going to have to play catch up. Because if we think about the Vietnamese community, they came here after the fall of Saigon in 1975.
Yeah.
This is 2024. In 2025, it's going to be 50 years since the fall of Saigon. We don't have enough information about it.
Yeah.
We don't know the history of the Vietnamese community, or they are called the boat people. And now it's when they are feeling comfortable. The elderly people from the boat people are feeling safe to talk and share just now.
Wow. Okay.
Day before, it was too traumatic. They were not ready. Now it's when they're ready, and they want to tell their story before they pass.
Yeah.
And so we're playing catching up. The history of immigration to Oklahoma, the records show that there were some Spaniards coming to Oklahoma by the Panhandle area in the 1540s.
Okay.
So the first expedition was from the Spaniards coming from the south.
Yeah.
Crossing Oklahoma, heading to Kansas. And so our presence has been here since the 1540s.
Incredible.
And not that many people knows about it. And so when they talk about Hispanics coming, I don't know what they're talking about, because it goes all the way to the 1500s.
Like, we've been here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we can discuss about the waves of immigration. And I was recently invited to as an alum for a program called Community Scholars Program at OU, and I was sharing with them the waves of immigration and how it was created by the need of labor supply, And in the 1880s, then was the Chinese Exclusion Act. And they didn't have enough workers from the Chinese that were coming to San Francisco and then helping out in building the railroad, because that was the mode of transportation at the time. Yeah. And so they don't have Chinese anymore. They don't have Eastern Europeans anymore. And so they went to the South and looked for labor at the South. And so that was the reason why the South started coming, because the U.S. needed some labor.
I see.
And so the immigration was created by the need of labor supply. Mm-hmm. And so, but we're not telling the story of the people who were working and doing creating the railroads, because when you look up and you search railroad, you see the people that were using it. But hardly ever you see the people that were working in creating it.
Yeah.
And so now we got to go back and identify, okay, who worked on it? Mm-hmm. Who was the hard labor that was put into it? And then in the 1940s, 50s, when the mode of transportation changed from railroad to the roads and roads were being built, okay, who worked on the roads? Yeah. Who were creating these materials? Where was the material coming from? And all along, you see all immigrants being part of the shaping of the nation and the state. And so that's part of my job, identifying who was here. And recently I found a picture. I was provided with a picture of a Mexican band playing in the 1890s in Guyman.
No way.
And then another one in Dewey, Oklahoma. But you see them and they have these huge instruments. Mm-hmm. And it says Mexican band. They were entertaining the workers from this mine.
What was the attire like? Do you remember what?
Yes. Black suits, black and white.
Really?
Black and white.
Okay.
And with these instruments, and I mean, very clean, and and so
that's so cool.
It is. I work in a treasure box.
Yeah. So I imagine all the historical stuff is super rewarding, but you having the background in supply chain and also even like Six Sigma, you probably like want to find some efficiencies, probably want to get it to work better, right? So maybe tell me a little bit about the challenges that you're facing there and maybe how you're solving some of the challenges there.
Yeah. Supply chain is looking at the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. Six Sigma is looking at all the minimal details.
Yeah.
So finding the intersection between those two. One of my biggest challenges is the lack of knowledge by some of my colleagues or some of the community members. They're afraid to speak their mind. Mm-hmm. And they don't tell me directly. Yeah. And so I'm observing to see what their reaction is. And the stereotypes that have been built over time, being able to debunk some of those stereotypes.
Exposing them to these different cultures and just showing them how rich they are, right?
And that's where the programs and events I develop, I don't develop those based on what the media or the traditional narrative is, but I work with the communities itself. Mm-hmm. So if I'm working for the Asian Historical Day, I develop the program with the different Asian organizations that are here in Oklahoma. And we sit down over several meetings to plan the event. Right now, I'm working on developing the Hispanic Heritage event, which is called Presente in Oklahoma.
You're telling me right now you're super busy, right? With the Heritage Month and everything, right? It's probably crazy, right?
It is, but it's fun. Yeah. It's fun. And so the development of this program was also made with leaders within the Hispanic community. Mm-hmm. Even though I am Hispanic, my perspective is just one out of many. And I can only bring so much to the table. And so I bring to the table as many diverse thoughts and from around the state, different fields, different occupations, different ages, and trying to be as holistic as possible. And so the ability to think big, but still at the same time zoom in, has helped me a lot into selecting what's most convenient and what it is most effective at the lowest cost.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, money talks, and if I don't have the money to pay a performer, then who else can do it, but without exacerbating the artist and without disrespecting the artist, but instead being as inclusive at the lowest cost with the highest service, and helping others understand that we're not here just to eat, which I love food. I'm a foodie.
Yeah, same.
But that is not it. We are here to contribute. We have been here contributing for a long time.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, the length of time that we have been here present. And so the name came about because we're also affiliated with the Smithsonian, National Smithsonian.
Okay.
And so we're one of the contact museums agencies in Oklahoma for the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian has the Presente exhibit. And so we're Presente in Oklahoma and showcasing the history and the stories of the Hispanic or Latinos individuals who have already been contributing to society, to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that have connected Oklahoma to the rest of the world. And so there's a doctor, a restaurant owner, a flamenco artist, the founder of the Latino Community Development Agency, and a professor or interpreter with medical terminology in Tulsa.
Okay.
So it's a
That's super
variety.
cool. Yeah.
And so there were a lot of nominations. We selected the top 5.
Okay.
And so that's who we are. We're in every different type of field. Is there enough of us? No. But the ones that are, we need to tell the story.
Bringing an author too, right, to the event. So there's
Yes.
an author that's going to be visiting.
It's a bilingual author. She has been highly awarded at a national level. She's from Peru.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's someone that you may want to read her books and buy her collection and read it to your children.
Mariana is her name. right?
Mariana Llanos is the author.
Yeah.
Highly awarded, and she's here in Oklahoma. We have one of the best bilingual authors here in Oklahoma, and she's going to be present.
I saw that she focuses a lot on children's, right? Children's books, stuff like that, right?
It is children's bilingual children's books, and she connects her latest book. It's called Vampirita, Vampires. And it's a little vampire that was brought in from Peru to the U.S. And she was brought into the sunny city. And you can imagine a vampire doesn't want to be in a sunny city.
That's funny. Yeah.
And she's telling from the vampires, little vampire's perspective, what it means to be a vampire in a whole new city. Just helping people understand the perspective of an immigrant, what it looks like, and everything that she has to learn. And so just putting it in a way where kids and adults can understand it without the prejudice, but instead helping connect both worlds, the Spanish speakers, the English speakers, and be able to have those conversations that are part of many of us. Our lives. If you were born in both sides of the world, those are conversations that we normally have. And so that's part of a way to have those conversations. And so that's why she was invited to be the author doing a book signing of her books.
Perfect. So Presente is September 24th, right?
It's Tuesday, September 24th at 11 a.m. at the Oklahoma History Center.
Okay. Are there tickets involved? Where can people go check out the tickets?
Yes. People can go to okhistory.org/presente.
Okay.
And they can buy it through Eventbrite, or they can go to our website, okhistory.org, and look at the calendar of events. and look for Presente.
Yeah.
Presente in Oklahoma.
Sounds like you have a great lineup where you're not only honoring local people, but also, like you said, authors are visiting. So it's going to be a rich program.
One of the opening performances is going to be done by Angelica Pereira. She's an amazing Colombian violin player.
Okay.
She has played with the musical bands, the Philharmonic. She's been one of the educators, tutors in violin. One of the best.
Wow.
One of the best. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, it's an incredible lineup.
It is. Yeah. It is amazing. These are professionals, and so she's from Colombia. The other performance is flamenco. One of the students from one of the honorees. Yeah. It's a posthumous honoree.
Yeah, Shannon Calderon, right?
Shannon Calderon.
Okay.
One of her students. He started attending her academy when he was a tiny little kid, and now he is performing. And he's one of the best flamenco dancers here in Oklahoma as well.
Yeah.
And so he'll be performing. Then also from Guatemala, one of the folkloric dances. And we're going to close with a presentation by Lee Hernan from Puerto Rico.
Okay, yeah. She's been on the podcast. She's super talented.
Okay.
She can sing all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so she's going to be closing,
yeah.
and the food is going to be authentic Mexican food, by authentic chefs.
Wow.
And so the presentation is going to be authentic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you and everybody. Now, tickets are running out. So whoever.
So there's limited space.
There's limited space, and we want to be meaningful, intentional about keeping it with an audience that can enjoy and can listen to each other and participate in the performances as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a question for you. How do you see technology sort of playing a role in preserving all this historical documents and also making an experience? One of the things that I tried recently in Dallas, they had a Van Gogh exhibit and it was immersive. So you'd sit down and it was like 3D and all his paintings and everything. It was pretty incredible. So I'm definitely a fan of technology. What do you feel about technology? How do you feel about it?
I am all into technology.
Yeah.
If we can have it all available on your fingertips, I'm all for it. One of the updates that are happening is they're working right now on a sports exhibit, the Sports Hall of Fame. We got a huge collection coming in, and we're gonna have a sports exhibit. The Barry Switzer. How much do you know about him?
I mean, he's like a legend in Oklahoma, right?
Okay,
when you think
good.
of football,
You know,
yes. Right? Cowboys, Sooners, you name it, right?
Yeah. And so Barry Switzer has been interviewed, and as part of the exhibit, he has been asked as many questions as one can think. And so when you visit the exhibit, even though he will not be in person, you can ask as many questions as you want. They have been pre-recorded. And so you can talk with Barry Switzer asking those questions.
Okay.
I don't have the exact name of the technology being used, but so you can pretty much have a conversation with Barry Switzer.
Technology can be a huge educational tool, right? Especially with little kids, because if they get to play with the technology and learn at the same time, right? That's a huge advantage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, history and education does not have to be boring.
Right.
Somehow when I hear people saying that they learn about history, that it was boring, I don't know which teacher they had.
Yeah.
I was born in Guatemala, and we learned about the Mayan civilization. We learned about the Romans, the Egyptians. I had to learn how to count the numbers up to 100 in different languages, including the Mayan and the Egyptian, and understanding the Roman numerals. And that was just part of the normal.
Yeah.
And so in me, it did help me see the world at a bigger lens. So when you expose children to a bigger world than what they live in, you're just helping them discover what the world is about.
Yeah.
And it is important that we understand that here in Oklahoma, the east side of Oklahoma, after the abolition of the slavery, a lot of people from the African American community came north And so they moved to Oklahoma. And the all-black towns, the historic all-black towns, there were 50 towns that were historic black, where the municipality, the government, were all from the African-American community. And there were talks about having Oklahoma being an all-black state by E.P. McBee. And so it is important that we acknowledge their presence and their contribution as well.
Definitely.
And so it is important that we get to know the history of all Oklahoma, not just the one that we were taught in class and we were just trying to pass because the class was boring.
Yeah.
And you just want to pass and you didn't want to learn about Oklahoma. But this is a good time where everything it's on a website now. You can go to okhistory.org, and if you go to the encyclopedia and you type in whatever word, more likely you're going to find something because we have the collection of all the newspapers since 1893.
Okay.
And so you can type in whichever word.
So everything's digitized. I can just search the entire library.
Most of it.
Wow, that's
there are
incredible.
some collections where we need some signatures, and for copyright releases, we need to get some approvals. But most of it, you can do your ancestry, genealogy study, and if they want to know if they belong to a certain community, you can do that as well, and that is for free.
What are your thoughts? So I don't know, maybe this is just me worrying too much, but we've become a digital society, right? And I feel like all of our records, everything's in the cloud, right? Everything's digital. Back in the day, people would write in stones. You would see all these facts, right? What do you think in the future? Are we doing a good enough job to preserve all these documents, all the history? What do you think about that?
Our job is to do that.
Yeah.
So in our case, that's exactly what we do. Now we're having to be selective on what we accept as part of the history of Oklahoma, because if we have a copy of a copy of a copy, then, well, we rather have the primary sources.
Sure.
But we're trying to preserve the actual ones. So for the Oklahoma flag, you can, when you see the design of the flag, we do have the original shield from the Osage community.
Okay.
We have the original one.
That's super cool.
And it's made out of leather. We had it recently in one of the exhibits when the Killers of the Flower Moon was happening.
That's a great movie. I love that one. Yeah.
So we had the exhibit and we were showing the shield that was used to design the flag of Oklahoma. And so it's pretty cool to see the original artifact.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people down the road, later down, see what it looked like. And right now we're working on an exhibit about the territorial times, which is from 1890 to before 1907. And we're looking for artifacts that were part of that time.
Okay.
Because it was not Oklahoma yet. And so what was happening right before, how they came about with the name.
Yeah.
Who were the key players, what was happening. And that's how I came about with the picture of the Mexican band. Because we're digging into...
just like kind of stumbled upon it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to collect, but also preserve.
Yeah.
Because down the road, with the Mayan civilization, I recently had the visit of the Mayan princess here in Oklahoma. And I was asking them about the etymology of the different Mayan languages. When the Spaniards went to Guatemala, they destroyed, they burned many of the codes and the research, the multiple years of researching astronomy, agriculture, and the languages, how they came about with the languages, that was destroyed by the Spaniards at the time. And so now we don't have a record of it.
Yeah.
And so gladly they didn't destroy the pyramids, and you can go and visit them. And so there's a lot that it's being preserved for the same reason, because you want to go back and discover where we came from, our roots, our identity.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do here in Oklahoma. So if you go to Spiral Mounds has a connection with some of the indigenous groups in Mexico. They were connected with the ones in the Spiral Mounds here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And there are some drawings. So the history of it,
Yeah.
you want to be able to see it and experience it.
Definitely. Would you say that the ingestion of sort of historical documents is an ongoing thing? Like even present day, are you guys gathering historical stuff that's happening current day and making sure that you preserve that as well?
We do ask people about if they have any documents. We recently came upon a journal from someone who was going through the Buffalo Soldiers. They had the journal of what it was like to be a Buffalo Soldier.
Okay.
And so it turned into a book. And so we have the book because those papers stayed with their relatives. And so people would bring in some items that they found now that their great grandparents passed and they don't want to throw it away. So they bring it. And that's how we start finding out about some of the documents. Now, because of technology and most of it being digitized at the moment, even the newspapers are being sent digitized to us.
Oh, okay.
And it makes it easier for us. And it makes it easier to put it on the cloud than having the actual paper copy.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like having the actual paper copy from the 1900s. And so if you ever come one day, I will totally show you where we have it. And
Yeah. What are some of the strategies that you've been using to engage these communities?
So the Mayan princess that came to visit us a few weeks ago, one of the community members, she was the first Mayan representative here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And she has her crown. The crown, it's made out of wood.
No way.
Carved.
Okay.
With the designs of the Mayan symbols and the Guatemalan culture. And so that's something that it's unique. And now we were having this conversation about it doesn't make any good to keep it hidden.
Yeah.
How can we show it to the rest of the population, the rest of the people that comes to visit? And now we're having this conversation that she might be donating it. The Clara Luper Legacy Committee, what we know about the civil rights in Oklahoma, it is thanks to the activism by Professor Clara Luper.
Okay.
Her daughter's name is Marilyn Luper. And she, along with the Clara Luper Legacy Committee, they made a plan to share the history of Miss Clara Luper. And so we do have the recreation of the seating movement or the seating area where people who were of color were not allowed to even order a drink or a sandwich or burger at the restaurant. And so kids were not taken to jail, adults were. And so that's why the kids were the ones sitting at the counters.
Okay.
But those kids are the ones that are now in their late 60s, 70s. And they are sharing some of their artifacts with us.
Yeah.
They are ready to let go of that artifact, which is part of their life.
Yeah. And it's great that they're doing that, right?
Yes.
That's great.
If you ever hear about the Minutemen Commandos jacket, we have it in our collection.
Okay.
And so they were ready to go and participate in some of the seatings.
Yeah.
But that was in the 60s. And now we're having those artifacts being donated to us because now they're ready. And so with these other communities that have not been represented at all, that's what I'm sharing with them.
Okay.
Hey, this is what these other groups did, and I would love to share the rest and so we're having conversations with the Vietnamese community, with the Filipino community. We're developing a documentary about the Filipinos in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so little by little having those conversations and letting them know how important it is to share it with the rest.
Definitely. I've been told that you're a fan of a good cup of coffee, right? And if you think about coffee, I mean, you might think that it's simple, but if you think about coffee and the culture, right? Like even in Cuba and then Colombia, Mexico, coffee's different. It tells a story the way you prepare it, right? What are your thoughts on coffee?
Oh, you're touching
Yeah? One of your favorite?
really,
Yeah.
really close memory here. So of course, we grew up surrounded by coffee.
Mm-hmm.
One of the very first drinks as a 3-month-old
No way.
is coffee.
3 months.
3 months.
Wow.
So the sweet bread, it's turned into puree with coffee. And
Okay.
that's one of your first foods that you're exposed to.
Wow.
My grandma used to take us. So Guatemala it has a volcanic line going from south to north.
Yeah.
And the weather is perfect to grow coffee on the west side of the country, the western side. And so my grandma used to take us to her hometown and trade some of the merchandise that she found in the city
Okay.
for coffee beans, corn, and black beans. That's part of our menu.
Yeah.
And so she would bring in the coffee beans, then she would toast them on the roof of the
Wow.
house.
I'm thinking super fresh, super like tasteful. Wow.
Yes,
Sounds
and then
incredible.
grind it on the stone, and it's called the stone where you do the masa, the
Yeah.
corn dough. That's also where she pressed the coffee beans when they were toasted, and they were toasted by the sun. So the taste of it, it's
I didn't even know that you could do that. That's incredible.
and so you would have to peel it and then grind it with the stone. It's kind of like the molcajete, but in a square
Yeah.
style. And so then she would brew it for us. And that smell in the morning,
It's the best, right?
it's hard to compare it with anything else. So the acidity and how smooth or how strong it was, she would measure how we liked it.
Yeah.
And so it's grandma.
Wow. So there's even a deeper connection with
Yes.
coffee because it reminds you of your family, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you also like to travel. So where have you had the best cup of coffee? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Let's see. Wow. Yeah, of course I have to say Guatemala
Yeah.
because that's home. That's childhood. I do like a lot the Colombian coffee.
They make one called tinto, right? Which is like super strong, but you would think that it's acidic, but it's really smooth. I like it.
Yeah. I do like Italian coffee. The Italian coffee is really good. The Americano coffee, I like
Like
it.
it? Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
My dad, he used to work in the hotel industry, and so he would bring in Americano coffee, and so it was, I guess, part of how I grew up
Yeah.
as well.
So you got that connection.
Yeah.
Now I see why you love coffee so much. I'm a big coffee guy myself, so I definitely had to ask you about. The other thing I always ask my guests too, if I pull up your playlist, who am I going to find on your playlist? So what's in rotation? What kind of music do you like?
I listen to Christian music.
Yeah? Okay.
Contemporary. Let's see. I'm really bad with names to be a historian. Names don't come to me.
You just remember the tunes or what?
Yes, I can
That's
sing
okay.
along. But pretty much Christian music.
Yeah.
There's a singer from American Idol. She was born in Guatemala, adopted, taken to the U.S. when she was little, but she was in American Idol recently. Her voice,
Okay.
it's loved it.
That'll be a
And-
good trivia question for the comments. People, if you know who it is, just drop it in the comments, right? Yeah.
Her rendition of the Rainbow the song talks about the rainbow.
Yeah.
If you can, so if you played the song, send it on the comments, and I'll sing along with
Okay,
you.
perfect. The United Nations. I also hear there's an important story there with the United Nations, right?
Yes, I was fortunate to be selected twice to be a delegate to the United Nations.
It's incredible.
And as I said at the beginning, one of my dreams as a child, teenager, was to be an interpreter for the United
Once
Nations.
again, almost full circle. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But this time, I didn't go to translate for somebody else. I went myself as one of the delegates. And so I was invited among the top Latino leaders in the nation by the We Are All Human Foundation. One of my heroes of all time has been Dolores Huerta.
Okay.
The one that came out with Si Se Puede.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. She, with her activism with Cesar Chavez, she was one of the people behind of the immigration reform of 1996.
Okay.
And they, in the 50s and 60s, they were being denied from protesting of the abuse, the labor abuse, and the owner of the vine farm were telling the workers that they could not assemble and protest, and then she came with, sí se puede, sí se puede,
Yeah.
like, and
Of course.
giving them the okay,
Right.
and that's where the sí se puede came. This December, at 83 or 93. She's 93 and she came. She was the speaker.
That's amazing.
at the meeting at the United Nations.
Okay.
And I was first row.
Wow.
And as soon as she was done, I run and had my selfie with her. I was the first person to get her selfie at the United Nations with Dolores Huerta, with my idol of Si Se
Super
Puede.
cool. That's really cool. So let's remind everybody, all the viewers, before we sign off, let's remind them again about Presente. When is it going to be? Where do they get tickets?
Oh, please come and join us on Tuesday, September the 24th at the Oklahoma History Center. It's at 800 Nazi Zudi Drive in Oklahoma City. The time of the event starts at 11 with authentic Mexican food, bilingual books, authors signing your books for you. You can start collecting, getting ready for Christmas, and get your books. And you can also network with some of the leaders within the Hispanic community. They're going to be there, including some of the consul representatives.
Perfect.
And amazing, a range of speakers. The keynote speaker, the MC, the performers, all of them have been preparing for a while to help all of us enjoy and celebrate our Hispanic Heritage Month. And so that's going to be on Tuesday, September 24th at 11 a.m. at the Oklahoma History Center. You can purchase your tickets at okhistory.org/presente.
Okay, perfect. What about social media? If they want to check out the Historical Society on social media, do you know where they can find it?
Yeah, just go to Oklahoma Historical Society. Look it up on
It's
their
all linked there.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And so you can visit our website at okhistory.org.
Okay.
And I mean, if you want to become a member, that's one of the best ways to visit all of the sites for, I think the membership right now, it's $75, but you can visit all of the museums and sites across the state for a family of 8.
Oh, wow.
All of them can come in for the same amount.
Okay.
So
it's a great deal.
Yeah, it is. When you break it down into all the museums and all, in between 8 people, you're paying like 50 cents per visit.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I definitely enjoyed the conversation. I feel like we could have a whole podcast just on coffee alone, right?
Yes. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah.
And I hope we can continue this conversation.
Definitely. Anytime you want to come back, just let me know.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Saidy Herrera on the Maverick Podcast. In dreams, we trust.